Hello, my name is Cordereo Bentley, and I am interviewing Mr. and Mrs. Bob and Evelyn Thompson at 199 North Main Street. Today's date is April 7th, 2011, and the time is 10:07 a.m. How y'all doing today?
Real fine, thank you.
So, were you born in Mansfield?
No,
I was born in Mississippi, Canton, Mississippi,
I was-
1937.
I was born in South Carolina.
So why did your family settle here? Settle in Mansfield?
Prosperity.
Job opportunity,
Like they felt there was better jobs here?
it was at the time, yeah.
Job education, better environment, a better solution to a lot of the contrary that was happening in the South at that time.
Did you have any brothers and sisters?
Yes.
Yes,
I have 6 brothers and 2 sisters.
What was life like in your family?
My family, just a normal family, happy-go-lucky. One parent working, which my father, my mother was a housewife, taking care of the kids when we came here from South Carolina.
on the same version, it was a family orientated where school, church, an environment in the neighborhood. In those times, you had more than just one family. You had a unit of uncle and aunt, grandparents, visitors coming in from the South and various states. Then you had cousins living with you. It was a well-orientated, occupied family where it was more than just a parent in correction. There was always an adult in the house to steer the activities of the youth as they grew, and whatever help was needed, it was done in that order.
And when you come home, you have a parent at home. You wasn't left alone like a lot of parents today. 2 parents are working, kids at home by themselves. We didn't have that. We had one parent at home at all times. And today is a different situation. And the economy is making that you have to have 2 parents working. And the kids are mostly on their own or some activities. Some parents do put their kids in activities, but some parents don't have the money to do that. So we had one parent at all time at home. And if we are in activities, we wasn't allowed to go anywhere without. They know where we were or what activities we were in at that time.
As my wife stated, that it was more of a spiritual, religious attitude, atmosphere. At the same time, there was corrections for us wherever we went. If we left home, there was corrections at the church. If we decided we wanted to go to a movie, we just didn't go ourselves. We asked permission to go. There was a time limit to how long we were to be out. If I came to the movie, which was the Ritz Theater at the time on North Main here, Park Theater, Madison Theater, and Ohio Theater. We had 5 theaters here. There was a theater on Walnut that got burned down, but we had to get permissions to go to the movie. There was never any movies during the weekdays. It was, for myself, it was on Saturdays. My father didn't allow me to go to the movies on Sundays. Sundays was a quiet day where there was no activities as playing sports. It was just a quiet day spent at home unless there was activities going on in the church. We couldn't play ball on Sunday. Whatever the rules and regulations at the home was, my father presented, my mother saw that it went through. We had responsibility at home that had to be done. If it wasn't done, you suffered the consequences. And rather than suffer the consequences, whether I wanted to do it or not, I went ahead and did it because I knew what the after effect would be, and it wouldn't be in my favor. They didn't mind using the strap or whatever came in their hands to correct the situation. The law has interfered in a lot of aspects where they deny the parents to correct their children anymore. And I think this is one of the big fallbacks that even the scripture says, spare not the rod, which it means that if a child is out of order, you're supposed to correct that. And this is what our foreparents did, and now it's not in favor. You can be charged. They call it brutality or whatever, but I would like for them to see what our parents in those days did to us to correct the situation. When I went out, I represented my family, and I didn't do anything to cause any distortion on my family. If I did, then whoever reported this back to my parents, I would suffer the consequence. I couldn't invite any of my friends into our home unless I got permission from my parents. I just couldn't bring anybody in. Or my parents wanted to know who I was socializing with, and if it was a bad environment, then I was pulled from that, or I was told not to associate myself with that. And then if I continued and went on and did that, then I suffered the consequences. Yeah.
So where did your parents work?
My father worked at the time at the Mansfield Tire. And occasionally, my mother did work outside of the home. I think for a time, she and Mrs. Fowler worked on the railroad. So I was too young to, go into that. And that was another situation where when the adults was in conversation, we didn't sit around and listen. It was off limits to us. We didn't get involved into their conversations. Or if they caught us eavesdropping, as you would call it, then we would be escorted out of the house. Or my father, if that was the case, I'd rather not for him to escort me anywhere because I knew what was coming after that. So therefore, whenever, I just stayed away.
And my father worked at the Ohio Brass, so therefore, it was just one parent working. Just like I said before, I have older brothers, and they pretty much kept an eye on the younger siblings. But no, we weren't allowed to roam anywhere unless we would tell our parents where we were or where we were going. And you had a certain time to be there, get back, and be at home. If not, they would come looking for you. A brother or sister, somebody would come looking for you and find out where you were. Most of our activities was, friendly house, back home, or activities at school, which school I went to was John Simpson's in senior high. And a lot of activities was going on then. Like now, for instance, when I was in school, we had a lot of activities after school, like volleyball, basketball, and, soccer and stuff like that. Now, they done took all the gym activities away from the kids. They don't have those activities no more in school. If maybe football, basketball, that's about it. But they had a lot of activities going on when we was in school at that time. So therefore, I think they should put it back for, in school. But I see the economy saying no, but I think they are realizing, that's why a lot of kids are getting woolly with the teachers and stuff like that, because they don't have nothing to do. And if they don't have enough activities, or, like they had gym, at least an hour, half an hour, they took all that away from the kids. We had to have that. Just like you had to pass a swimming meet before you graduated from senior high. You're gonna do something. Only way you can get out of that class of not taking that swimming course, or you had to get a doctor's excuse, or your religion forbid you for swimming. You had to pass that test of swimming. And now kids don't even know, half of the kids don't even know how to swim. But our kids, we brought our kids up like we was brought up. They learned how to swim. Friendly House, our son was in Friendly House from day one. And he learned how to swim. He was co-counsel for the Friendly House down in Henry Howard camp and all that stuff. Our daughter, she was cheerleading from grade school up to senior high. And after senior high, Malabar, she was a track star. They had activities. Now they done, eliminate half of that stuff for kids. And I think that was so wrong when they took all the gym and the other activities out of school for the youth.
My wife said that in my early years, she told their parents where they was going. Not so with me. I had to ask permission. And then after asking my father permission, we always go from the head. Father was the head, mom was next in line. He'll say, go ask your mother. And I go ask my mother, and she says, what did your father say? So sometimes you have to use psychological thoughts. Well, she said it was okay if it was okay with you. I don't have no problem with that. Want to go to the Park Theater one afternoon, a couple of friends of mine, we went. The movie got so good that we stayed from 2 o'clock up until 10 o'clock that night, sitting in the movies. And when I came home, I had to suffer the consequence. My father, if I asked permission to go somewhere, how long is it going to take you? I never figured out. I never timed myself until you figure out how long it's going to take. And whether he realized it or not, the way he was addressing these issues to me, it was making me think. It was preparing me to be conscious of where you are, what you're going to say, and how you're going to present it. I was always trained to be respectable to everybody, not only in the family, but we was taught the morals of being polite, being nice, whether they're your parents or not. Scriptures say honor God and your father and your mother, and thy days will be prolonged upon the earth in which the Lord thy God has blessed you. And anytime you see people living beyond 70, that's 70 years plus, these are the blessings of God. But those was the trainings that we experienced in the home, and when we left the home, we carried the environment of the teachings of our parents and our relatives with us in school. I was getting excellent grades in school, but I had a bad conduct of talking all the time.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to Crevlin, which is, at the time, they called it Bowman Street School. Then they named it to Crevlin. Then they reconstructed Crevlin, and we were moved to the old West Fifth School while they was reconstructing Crevlin. Then at the time, they didn't have the handicap facilities for the handicapped children, so they had to start downsizing the grade schools. And in our grade school, every Thursday, we had a Bible teacher coming in, and for an hour, she taught us the scriptures of the Bible. And then when I was in the 5th grade, Mrs. Martin, she was my 5th grade teacher, plus her husband was a minister, and she was a Sunday school teacher. So we, at that time, the state allowed biblical scriptures being taught publicly. But then when you came in where these people were striving to quote against the Word of God, then these atheists, they start passing and demanding laws that you not do this. And the weakness of the state and our city, they allow them to do these things. And this is why we're having so much corruption in the schools, in the city, with youth and teenagers today. As a teenager, we had Youth for Christ every Saturday at John Simpson Junior High School at Appleseed. And it was a great environment where we learned how to work together, and it wasn't the issue of the color, it was just
And communicate with one another.
we were
really.
communicating. Even at senior high school, we had Ron Ledger and all of us, we had prayer up on the 4th or 5th floor at Mansfield Senior High School at 7 o'clock. And it taught us, even in our athletic programs, in football, we always had prayer before the game. In track, we always had a word of prayer, not to win, but to succeed in our efforts. We realized that you're not going to win every heat, but we were built that whatever we strive to do, we were going to be winners. We never go out to run or play ball to lose. And when they took all of these environments of activity away from the youth, this is why we have all of this obesity. The kids are sitting in the school from 8 o'clock to 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and all of this dead weight is laying on them, and they don't have a way to energize and get it off. We had morning recess, and we had afternoon recess. The athletes that participated in the sports like I did, I didn't have to take gym because I was playing football, basketball, and track. I played under Coach Bill Peterson that went on to coach the LSU Bandits and then the Houston Oilers. And then Earl Bruce was my running back coach out of Mansfield Senior High. And Bob McNay, he was my head coach my junior year. He went on to coach at Northwestern. So it's an idea, it's an idyllic thing that when you're busy, you don't have time for mischief. And too much time the children have, and too much time alone.
Right.
The computers is a great asset, but it's a
Handicap.
bad handicap when you leave your child at home with the computer. And this is why, when we were coming up, it was unthought of to hear of kidnapped kids. It was unthought of to see a pregnant young woman come into our class.
Because everybody in the neighborhood knew who you were.
And we protected.
And you are protected from the time you walked out of your door to the time you went to your destination where you were going. Like you were going shopping uptown, somebody uptown know who that kid belongs to. And if you got in trouble, I bet you when you got back home, your parents knew what you had did before you even got there. That's how the community helped us in our generation. But when the generations of our kids came along, it was a different story. And then so forth and so on. Just like you said, most of the kids are computer literate. They got these computers. Every child, they're sitting. They're not moving. They're not doing any activities. their mind is on something else. And that's why you have so much crime and kids are dropping out of school unnecessary because people didn't look after their kids after certain generations. But when we left home, everybody from North Main, South Main, or whatever, they knew who you were and who were your parents. I don't care where you went, somebody knew you some kind of way.
No young man came in our neighborhood
That,
dealing with our
yeah,
girls.
no, because
Uh,
they gonna find out who your parents are, where you from, and everywhere else. You didn't step out of bounds, or nothing like that. And if you did, you gonna get,
Are there any teachers from school? I know we kind of touched on this already. Are there any other teachers you remember especially well from school?
Jack Shea was my sixth grade teacher and my coach. He went on to, he was an All-Ohio high hurdler that went to Ohio U, and he lived out here on Bowman Street. See, a lot of our teachers lived in our area at that time.
most of them.
He was my sixth grade teacher, and Coach Bob Kennedy was my football and basketball coach at Simpson. And Bill McKinney was my fifth and sixth grade coach in softball when we won the city sectional championship against Woodland. I remember how we played the championship up at Brinkerhoff, I think it was. And the fans from Woodland was very hostile to us because of our color. And it upsetted our coach, Bill McKinney, that he canceled the game. He said, my players don't have to play under that environment, this environment that is going on now. And I had the highest respect and regard for him, for what he did. Coach Shea, we won quite a few city championships in football. And for rewarding us, he would take us fishing. And we would fish with bread from the cafeteria in the school. But when we got on the fishing bank, rather than give the fish the bread, we sat there and ate it on the bank. But he had a 50 Ford convertible. And back then, the cars had running boards that you could ride on the side and all, and that was our joy and activities then. And even then, at that time, blacks were not allowed to swim in the swimming pool at North Lake Park.
No.
And there were certain days, which was Monday, that we were allowed to skate. Other than that, it was off limits to us.
I know you mentioned you were involved in some sports. Were you by chance involved in these sports activities?
Me?
Yeah.
Mostly just basketball. I didn't do any track or nothing like that. Just basketball team. That's about it.
I played against Jerry Lucas.
Oh, yeah?
Paul Warfield came under me. Hurricane Henry Weaver, all of those young men came under me. I played ball with Willie Mack and Wilma Fowler, who went on to Northwestern. Willie Mack went on to Bowling Green. At that time, scholarships was eliminated. So, Lord bless it, I did get a couple of years in college. But on the same token, I got married, family came first, and this is where I am now.